We are back here with Chairman Omali. We talk about the African revolution or the African people revolution, and we're talking about this interesting talk, how African is not really a nation, it's just people dispersed and oppressed all over the world. And as Chairman Omali said, we need to bring this African power. And I want to ask you, when revolution occur or take place, what are the, it's not like a formula that they say this 1 and 2 has to happen before 3. I mean, it's a very, the essence of the definition of revolution itself, it happens unpredictable. So when does the revolution, or you said the capitalist system is the last breath, where did that come from?
Well, where it comes from is the fact that it rests upon this uneasy fault line, if you will, historical fault line, because it is parasitic, because it got its essence and it's maintained through this being able to oppress everybody else in the world. That's why everybody else is starving, and where you find all the wealth primarily concentrated in Europe and in North America. So that's the meaning of the significance of people like Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, people taking back those resources, not just there, but the challenges that they're facing in places like Afghanistan, throughout the Middle East, people taking back those resources or challenging them for those resources. That's the fundamental basis of the economic crises that we see that's hitting Europe and North America. That's why the Greeks are now catching hell economically, and so are they in Portugal and other places, and increasingly here in the United States, because they cannot rely anymore on those resources in the same way they were in the past. Plus, they're being challenged in a very serious way by people who themselves were colonized just yesterday, like China. So this is eating into the process as well. So this is why we say that this is the final offensive against imperialism, against capitalism.
But you mentioned China, and also to have the element of revolution, you have to own the means of production. And you said the only people who produce value are the working class.
Yes.
But the capitalism outsourcing the working class to China. So who's going to have this, what Marcus says, this working conscious, and they're going to, all the people who are working service, and they don't have this working conscious class, the working class conscious, and I don't see a revolution.
Because I think that the problem with Marx and many other European socialists was the assumption that somehow capitalism is destroyed by what happens within Europe and North America, that the white workers or the industrial working class will overthrow the
That's what he was living anyway.
Exactly. But the problem is that all of it rests upon this pedestal of oppressed people around the world. What's really changing the world.
He didn't notice that, Marx?
He saw it, but it was incidental to him.
Yeah.
It was not even part of the formula.
The oppressed Africans?
Yeah, he saw it. It was incidental. He talked about Africa. He talked about primitive accumulation. Is what he characterized that.
Yeah.
What did he mean by primitive accumulation? He meant that this stuff they were stealing from the Americas, stealing from Africa, stealing from slavery was a part of the accumulation of capital that led to the development of capitalism itself. So he meant led to the development of Europe. That was how his perception was. We existed only as something significant to the development of Europe. So he was not able to see us as primary actors in the process, even though he said himself that if you remove this pedestal, he said that the so-called wage labor or wage slavery in Europe rested on slavery pure and simple in the New World. If he recognized what that meant, his conclusion would not have been that the people who are sitting on this pedestal of slavery somehow can take power from somebody else on the pedestal of slavery, and therefore you have socialism.
And you mentioned in your book, if he recognized that, he would have said the road to
socialism is painted black.
I mean, I want to see what blackness is.
Yeah,
blackness is not a race.
Well, first of all, the race is a concept that was created by the colonialists themselves. But I think that there is
a messed up concept.
It's a messed up concept, horrible concept. And I think that I'm more comfortable dealing with the reality of nations that I think for all practical purposes do exist. And I think that there are oppressed nations in the world. And the fundamental contradiction in the world exists between oppressed nations and oppressor nations. And that Europe, although they talk about the French nation and the German nation, and but Europe, white nationalism, a nation of Europe that came about as a consequence of slavery and colonialism. And it is united, has a sense of sameness. And the primary basis of that sense of sameness is this solidarity, inherent solidarity, against the rest of us and maintaining this relation, this economic
they fight
power.
with each other all the time, and you have a civil war, World War I, World II. But when it comes to the color people, they are united. So what it means being
when they
whiteness,
fight among each other, probably what they're fighting for most of the time is who's going to get the biggest share, you know, of the colonial booty. In fact, you have a situation where the first, what they call first World War I, was nothing but a struggle among imperialist powers for a redivision of the world. World War II, redividing the world among themselves. That's what they were fighting over. And that's because the colonized people have been the fundamental engine of everything for all of their development. If we rise up, if we gain power, then France, that gets 65% of the foreign reserves from every of this so-called former colonies in Africa, 65% goes straight to the French treasury. Another 20% goes to the French treasury to pay for handling the 65%, which means 85% of all the domestic product from those African countries goes straight to the French treasury, which means that those countries only have 15% of the resources that they try to live off, which means they never have enough. So how do they get what they need? They borrow it from France. And guess what? They're borrowing their own money, and they have to pay France at commercial rates. And if they complain about it, France overthrows them. Just like France is in Mali now. France, they're not talking about what happened in France and Mali, what happened in France and Central African Republic, like they're talking about the Soviet Union and Crimea. They're not talking about that.
There's oil there too.
Yeah, it's all there. I mean, and of course, all of this is it's a rigged game.
So you know, when how does the oppressed white workers or poor white fit in all this?
What they're going to have to do is commit national suicide. They're going to have to abandon their whiteness, which is nothing but an ideological thing that unites them with their ruling class against the rest of us.
So what is whiteness?
Whiteness is an ideological concept. It was something that was created to distinguish and unite this group of people in Europe and
power.
It's to unite them in a common economic and political structure to against the rest of the world. Prior to slavery and colonialism, most of the people in Europe defined themselves in relationship to each other. The Celts, the Visigoths, all of these but it was slavery, and then colonialism, then the creation of the black man that made and the white man became something. Yeah, that's it. So their consciousness now, they define themselves primarily in relationship to the rest of us. This is the basis for European nationalism, for the emergence of the white man. And so white people, I mean, you have a situation where the reality is that in this country and in Europe, you have this tremendous gap of wealth between ordinary white people and the ruling class. But the gap between white people in general and the rest of us is huge. I mean, in this country, the wealth that's controlled by white families is 22 times greater than that by black families. And it can't be because they one works harder than
inheritance and
inheritance, and also because they have a colonial relationship.
You talk about the old slavery, and I mean, you have the energy of the '60s, and we are in the 21st century. I mean, I first came to this country Syria when I'm in the 80s.
Right.
That was the language. That was the energy. Malcolm X and not so much Martin Luther King.
Right.
The dream is what we talk about, the nightmare. So why now you are optimistic about the change and revolution? Where'd that come from?
It comes from watching what's happening in the world. And in Egypt is a part of that, because as much as they want, Egypt is not securely in their hands anymore. As much as Sisi predicts an outcome, it's clearly not the case. People everywhere now. It's not like in the past they were able to satisfy the interests of the ordinary white workers and satisfy their own interests by extracting more value, more wealth from the colonized people. But now
can't do this anymore.
You can't do it anymore. In fact, it's the colonized people who are leading this massive struggle everywhere. You can't look at a newspaper or turn on your television or go to the internet not one single day and not see struggle someplace on this earth
Maybe
against
the
the status
revolution
quo.
will come from the poor whites, because they've been used to
The poorest whites,
exploitation.
but that's who usually joins the Ku Klux Klan and do all the other dirty work for them. I do believe that it's possible for a sector of the white population, by the way, to unite with the struggle of the masses of the people. But that means white people are going to have to end their isolation from the rest of humanity. It's a voluntary segregation. It's a voluntary isolation. That means they're going to have to unite with the rest of us against white power.
Tomorrow, you are the keynote speaker of a major event, Minnesota MalcomX Conference.
Right.
Why are we still celebrating MalcomX
Because
after all this? And where Martin Luther King is the dream, and we celebrate him every year. We don't even have a day for Malcolm X.
No, and when they get a day for Malcolm X, I'm going to be frightened.
There'll be a short day.
But because Malcolm X was killed by this government, and he was killed, and you can't take Malcolm out of isolation, because at the same time, that same time frame, the Black Panthers were destroyed. Martin Luther King was shortly killed, etc. So assassination was ubiquitous. They were killing people all over who represented a real threat to the social system.
When he started thinking internationally about it.
Yeah, and that was when he was more dangerous than ever. When he could see the connection between the struggle of Africans in this country and the people around the world. Yeah.
Chairman Omali, thank you so much. Pleasure to have you. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And I have to, Chairman Omali is going to be tomorrow here in Minnesota. I don't know the mainstream media not even talking about this event, but I check on the website, Minnesota MalcomX Conference, and we'll leave you here and we'll continue the discussion. It's not going to go away. Assalamu alaikum, and God bless you all. All right, clear?
Yep, go to black, press escape on the computer.
Okay, we survived this one.